My name is Bill Green. I'm the Green Party candidate in the upcoming federal election for the Kootenay-Columbia riding, and I'd like to tell you about me. 5 things about me. Number 1 is how much I love the Kootenays, the Purcells, and the community I live in, Kimberly. Moved here more than 20 years ago with my wife in Fort Helen and 4 children, and it has met everything we were looking for in terms of mountains, snow, skiing, recreation, and community. But it's also a place where I've expressed my love for the outdoors and passed on that love for the outdoors. I was a cross-country ski coach in Kimberly and skied and raced throughout BC and throughout the Kootenays because I wanted to pass on that love of the outdoors. And I'm really happy that many of the young children that I coach, now young adults, are passionate too in their love of the outdoors. So passionate they're now working on this campaign. Number 2 for me is my love of water. It's been pursued through recreation, but more importantly through my career in different phases. It started in Papua New Guinea, really my first long-term job from 1976 to 1980, where I worked teaching marine ecosystems to high school students, and then went on to do work around marine environmental impact assessment. And I brought that forward to work throughout BC, but specifically on the west coast of Vancouver Island, where I worked within the Chalmers Tribal Council on fisheries, on salmon fisheries, shellfish fisheries, and community-based resource management. And it's been carried forward into the work I've been doing for the last 20 years as director of the Canadian-Columbia River Intertribal Fisheries Commission. That's an organization that's been founded by Squamish and Tanaha communities to protect and restore aquatic ecosystems, and most particularly to restore salmon to their home in the Upper Columbia. And that's work that I'm encouraged is going very, very well. We hope to see salmon back in the lower reaches of the Canadian Columbia around Castlegar within 5 years. That brings me to my work with First Nations. And it's been a hallmark of my career going back to 1976. I've worked with Indigenous governments for a very big part of my career, and I've learned a lot from working with First Nations, and I enjoy that work very, very much. And but it reflects my belief that we need to reconcile with First Nations. There needs to be reconciliation at all levels of Canadian society with First Nations, business, communities, local governments, and provincial and federal governments. And I hope that reconciliation for First Nations will be an important part of the election campaign and something that's carried forward by the next federal government. And at a little bit more abstract level, there's 2 things that I think are a hallmark of my work. One is community engagement and empowerment, and a couple of examples of that. It's been really the focus of my graduate studies was on community-based resource management. It's been a very big part of my work with First Nations communities, but also with other communities. From 1981 to 1988, I worked with a small consulting cooperative on west coast of Vancouver Island, based in Port Alberni, which was focused on community economic development and community-based resource management. And I worked in both areas, worked throughout BC, worked with businesses, with local governments, with port authorities, with First Nations, with individual entrepreneurs around business planning, community economic development plans, and community-based resource management. And I learned so much from doing that about the fact that the nexus of community development, the nexus of business development, is in communities and is with small business, and that's a really important lesson that I've learned and tried to carry forward in my work. And finally, a hallmark of my work and something that I deeply believe in is consensus building. And a couple of examples speak to that. As the director of the Canadian-Columbia River Intertribal Fisheries Commission, I spearheaded the development of the Columbia-Kootenay Fisheries Renewal Partnership in 2000 and 2001. That partnership involved First Nations, industry, anglers, local governments, environmental non-government organizations, and other stakeholders. And we came together around a plan for the Kootenay-Columbia region for protection and restoration of our aquatic ecosystems, our water, and our fisheries resources. And it was a very exciting process, including a meeting at Rogers Pass that led to the development of our strategic plan and the foundation of our work moving forward. And we continued to work with all those groups, local governments, businesses, etc. And finally, another example of the consensus building approach, which I so strongly believe in, is recently the development of the Elk Valley Water Quality Plan, working with First Nations, local governments, tech, and the provincial government to reach consensus about what are all the pieces that are necessary to get us back to healthy water quality in the Elk Valley watershed and healthy fisheries. And I'm very proud of the work we've done in that area and the work, of course, that tech is doing, but it was a consensus-based approach to get us there. So I hope you've learned a bit about me, and will consider that as you think about the important decision of who you will vote for in the upcoming federal election.